Hello, I'm Dr. Jeffrey Fidel. In this video, I'd like to go over why thought identification is the cause of most needless human suffering. So when I'm talking about human suffering in this regard, I'm not talking about people at war or people that are in real situations where they're suffering. I'm talking about suffering more as a choice in a way, a suffering that takes place when we're just sitting alone in our room and our own mind is causing us suffering. Suffering in the absence of a real external threat. That's the suffering that I'm speaking about here. So what's causing this type of mental suffering? Is it genetics? Is it a biochemical imbalance? It's something much simpler than that. It's just the identification with the thoughts in the mind that is causing the suffering. This occurs because if we believe our thoughts to be true, then every thought that comes into our mind, there's a reaction to that thought. So if a bad thought comes into our mind, we believe the bad thought, and then we are affected by that bad thought. On the other extreme, if a good thought comes into our mind, then we are identified with the good thought, and then we can feel good. So in this way, we're completely identified with our thinking mind. Everything that's coming into our thinking mind affects the being of who we are. So the suffering is just that, is if we're in a room in the absence of any external threat, and if we believe our depressed thoughts to be true, why then we'll become depressed. And if we believe our happy thoughts to be true, well, we might be happy. And in more extreme cases, when the thoughts become more rapid and more exuberant, then we may behave in a manner that's deemed to be manic, meaning the behavior is now identified with these faster thoughts, which might lead to faster, more impulsive actions. And even in the case of the label of schizophrenia, there might be thoughts in the mind where there are visual thoughts that are so overpowering that the person believes these thoughts to be true. It could be like a visual thought of a god that's going to kill the person, and that, of course, will cause immense mental suffering for the person because they're completely identified with these thoughts in their mind. And you could only imagine if the mind or their mind is creating a vision in their head that they're going to be killed by a god, that's going to cause extreme suffering because they believe their thoughts to be true. So contrary to any genetic cause or biochemical cause, it's the identification with thoughts that in the end cause this type of mental suffering. How does one free themselves of this needless mental suffering? Is the practice of watching thoughts or being the awareness of thoughts. And that's simply to be able to sit in a quiet room and allow these thoughts to come and go without them having an effect on us. And to just be able to sit for about 5 minutes watching these thoughts come and go, we begin to realize that we don't have to identify with these thoughts. We don't have to believe these thoughts as absolute truth. We could just be that awareness that watches these thoughts, and then these thoughts cease to have that absolute power over us. Thoughts just become thoughts, not our thoughts, not anybody's thoughts, but just thoughts. like another sense, just like vision sense, hearing sense, feeling sense, thinking sense. So in summary, thought identification is the major cause of human suffering that has nothing to do with any external suffering. A suffering that is created only by the mind itself, by believing these thoughts to be true. And the practice of observing thoughts or being the awareness of thoughts is something that we can do to begin to liberate ourselves from our own mental creation of suffering.